Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I'm just going to give you guys my opinion on the balance manifesto for Ultimatum, because it definitely does kind of resonate with my kind of play style, I guess you could say. So I'm not going to read the manifesto, you guys can go check that out yourself. I'm just going to give you my opinion on the changes and kind of where the game is going in the future. So let's start off with the obvious. They're, removing basically fractured 100% delirium maps, from the game essentially. You will no longer be able to sit in your hideout and do 100% deli maps. Self-curse is gone. Self-poison is gone. I know they're adding some things as compensation, but let's be real. They're not going to be anywhere close to what it was. They're, taking down the really good Atlas passives. High value targets and diplomatic escort both were insane options to go for. They're buffing some things, and they're also, I think they're actually hitting every single build I did in Ritual League. They're doing Mana Miner really hard. They're doing Carrying Golems. We don't know how hard that is going to be. And then Blade Vortex. It's still going to be good, but it's definitely not going to be, what it was. Especially with the explosion nerfs, you're going to probably have to look at using Impulsor or some other sort of explosion mechanic, or like stacking, multiple explodey ones and then, explodey chest. This on top of the harvest nerfs really does, hit home. And I think the overall theme of the changes is kind of like, we were building up every single league from kind of the inception of PoE, with a few exceptions, has always been building up, more loot, more power, more options, more crafting, more everything. We just got more and more powerful every single league. And there was more loot every single league. It just got more and more crazy. Legion was like crazy, and then Delirium was even more insane. And then we had the heist money printer go brr, and then it just kept getting crazier and crazier. And then Harvest, and then it all came to a head with the the Atlas ascendancies, with the permanent watchstones. We got Harvest back. It was like everything was just like this massive, perfect characters. The most juice you could possibly imagine. So much juice that it would literally crash your computer. You had to spend 10 minutes looting a map, and it was just basically like just everything was just at its absolute peak. And where could you possibly go from there? What could they possibly add that would make the game even better or exciting? They couldn't add any new crafting because, Harvest is an item editor, right? Unless they nerfed that. Like what could you possibly add outside of like something like a Maven Orb, which is just more power creep, that would, make it better? What can they add which is more rewarding than running Delirium maps every map with permanent sextants, Nem4, all of that stuff like that? What can you possibly add except more monsters for the Delirium, loot tile machine? It got to a point where we were so far from where we started. We all knew this was coming, and they did it. They finally just nerfed it all at once, and I think the game needed it. There's no way that we can get from the PoE we're at, like currently in, it echoes the Atlas, to where PoE 2 wants to go. You look at the PoE trailer and it's like, dude, how are we ever getting there? With like Explode, Poison stacking, Headhunter, some guy the size of the screen, loot, so much loot that it lags your computer, you can't get there from there. That's like, this isn't how they wanted the game to be, obviously. And I think all of the changes are pretty much justified. When you actually really look at it, what this does is it removes so much loot, so much like items, like, all of the crafting changes and all that stuff like that from the game. It's going to make everything more scarce and more valuable. So those breach stones we've been popping in like candy from all of the Delirium farmers, those aren't going to be there anymore. All those scarabs from the skittering orbs we were infinitely duplicating with fractured fossils from people delving to 6,000 depth, those won't be there either. So all of the items in the game are going to be a lot more special and rare. Now, why does this suck? Well, we're used to having all these things. We're used to running around the map at, 2000% movement speed with poison. And like sobering up from that is going to be quite a brutal experience for some of us. Going from, those heights to, back to reality, it's going to be rough. It's going to be taking some getting used to, but it absolutely needed to happen. Essentially, I think this is a pretty good change for the game. It's going to like basically reset us all, and it's going to be kind of like, how classic WoW came out and it's everyone's going back to basics. I feel like it's going to be that kind of experience. Obviously nowhere near as crazy. We still do have really insane builds in the game, and there's still a ton of loot to be had with everything in the game, but it is definitely going from, like, whoa, just like massive, like just like a cake with no cake and just pure whipped cream. It's like that to, like a salad a little bit. But yeah, so kind of moving forward, I've given my kind of opinions on the changes. I think this is fairly sufficient in getting the game in a place where they can continue to build on it. I think Harvest should be in a fairly good place. I'm not super thrilled with how, non-deterministic the crafting is. I'm also not super thrilled with the tedium that's going to come from, trading for scarabs if you want to juice up a map, trading for delirium orbs if you want to use delirium orbs. But at the same time, they'll be more special, but, we're used to running scarabs on all our maps. So it's going to definitely take some getting used to. Now, I think the timing of this is a little bit off. And the reason I say that is because of the league that it's being launched beside. So one of the big things about Delve, about Harvest, and about Delirium, specifically 100% Delirium, is that they were end game goals for players to pursue. Going to 6k Delve is no mean feat. It might take you months, or even you may not even get there for your average player, but it will always be a goal for you to get there. And as a Delver, your access to Sulfite has been drastically reduced if you're looking at the Sulfite scarabs. And the rewards that you could, expect, resonators are still there, the fossils will still be there, but no one's going to be queuing up for your fractured fossils anymore, and there's going to be potentially a lot of issues, funding your way there. They've also diluted the scarab pool, but, like, basically overall, I'm not sure if the delving will have quite the same allure. Similarly, 100% Delirium, it's nowhere near as accessible or as exciting as it was in this past league. You're not going to be running infinite sextants. You're not going to be doing all of the insane stuff with the elevated sextant mods. It's all that you could do it, but you most likely won't do it because you're going to be doing all that for like 2 maps. Because you're going to have to roll everything, all sorts of stuff like that. It's going to be a massive chore to set up the amounts of juice that you were used to running on every single map. So that's definitely going to feel bad. And I think that's probably why some people, are a little bit sad about the changes. And yeah, same deal with the Harvest stuff. Like you're used to being able to craft something you wanted to craft. Just, you could get there, from A to B. And now, like, sure, you can still get there, but, it's going to cost you like hundreds of exalts, or it's going to cost you, tons of these random harvest crafts, or all sorts of stuff like that. So I think it's a sobering set of manifesto notes here, ones that absolutely needed to happen. The Delirium changes, just like the Harvest changes, needed to happen to get PoE to where it needs to be for PoE 2. But yeah, it's definitely, bit feels bad, man. And I wouldn't expect to be surprised by, some people being a bit sad and lost in the new league without their big endgame thing that they're used to doing. I hope that the new league covers for that, but what I was kind of alluding to earlier is that this league doesn't really have that massive endgame engagement that, something like perhaps Synthesis had, where you had this big crazy board game that you could do. Even something like Incursion did have kind of a lot more pieces to it. It is very much a, jump in the map, do it, bing, bang, boom. If you're trying to look at min-maxing it, it's all about like movement speed and stuff like that. And that just doesn't have the depth that some of these big endgame systems do have. So I probably would have liked to see these changes happen last league so that we had echoes to kind of tide us over and, get excited about. But overall, yeah, definitely some pretty crazy balance and manifestos. You won't hear me complaining about it outside of this video. it's all going to be, you know, hype from this point on, but I am definitely a little bit sad, and you know, it is what it is. I'm sure a lot of other content creators will echo these sentiments. But yeah, good changes overall. These are positive things for the overall player base. You know, all of the items you're used to seeing, like fusings, scarings, alchemies, all of these things will retain a lot more value, because there won't be some guy in a Delirium map with Nemesis 4 absolutely crushing the value of them by getting 100 alks in a map. So generally, the economy will be healthier for longer. Things won't devolve into uselessness. Like, you're not going to see 1C Zoth's Breachstones anymore or anything like that, which is fantastic news, in fact. So overall, really good changes. Really excited to come up with some new strategies for the currency making. And hopefully you guys are just as hyped still for the new league, despite the changes. So yeah, sorry for the rambly video, but you know, figured a lot of people would be interested in my opinion potentially. And there it is. Until next time, cheers.